Here's what's coming up.
What is up, y'all? This is JamesIsLazy here, and back to the regular videos that y'all fucking subscribed for. I want to talk about something that happened in Invincible Season 3, Episode 2, I believe, where we see a face-off between Mark and Cecil, basically, the government official and Invincible. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because this is a talking point that I very much wanted to talk about. I talked about it a little bit onto my TikTok, but I didn't fully dive into it. But also because a friend of mine, Teddy Slump, made a video on it, and I'm mad at him. Why did he make that video? That was my subject. That was mine. He just snatched it. But don't worry, because my opinion's gonna be 10 times better than that guy over there. So you don't even gotta watch his video over there. Don't watch it. Guarantee you, garbage. I'm just letting you guys know. I'm joking around. He is an amazing YouTuber. Go watch that. After this, of course. As usual, I don't have a script, but I do have a little card here that's gonna remind me of everything that I need to talk about to make sure that I don't go off track. But we're gonna get into this right now, and let me explain the situation to you beforehand. Spoilers for Invincible Season 3, so if you haven't watched it, click off, go watch it, but if you don't care, then don't click off and keep watching. In a moment where all the superheroes are captured under Earth, there's a point where Cecil decides to use a past villain, well, two past villains actually. One of them isn't really a villain, but I guess we'll just call them villains. Sinclair, who experimented on college students to create these crazy human-killing robots, and Darkwing's apprentice, his sidekick, who is now the official Darkwing. And Darkwing, he killed people in basically the Invincible World's version of Gotham City, and I already told you what Sinclair did. But Sinclair's drones actually come in to save all the superheroes, and so does Darkwing. And Mark sees this and he's like, oh hell no. So he starts destroying the robots, and he looks at Darkwing like, why aren't you in prison? And then they confirm that they work for Cecil. So then Mark goes back, he confronts Cecil, and then a huge discussion goes on where Mark says that the villain should be put in prison or jail. Prison is worse because it's a bigger word for their crimes, and they shouldn't be allowed to do whatever they want. While Cecil says, well, we don't waste potential here. If they can be useful to helping us protect America, then they can make up for their sins versus simply just rotting away in prison. So with that explanation, we're gonna get into everything right now. I'm so surprised that I didn't really stutter that much. I am such a good YouTuber. Get my opinion out of the way so you guys know. You probably could tell off the title. You probably can't actually, I'm leaving it mysterious. I think that both parties are correct in certain aspects, but they're both wrong. I think a big issue that I have with when people discuss this topic is that they see it all in black and white, and if shows such as Invincible and The Boys show anything, is that usually, realistically, it's never just simply black and white. There's always a gray area, and usually most of the time, that's where everything is. There are certain aspects where that's not true, such as, you know, the Viltrumites wanting to literally just kill weaker people for the sake of a stronger race. That's probably more on the not so good side, but majority of things in life and in this show fall between that gray kind of liner. However, with that being said, I think for majority of this argument, Cecil is the person that I would agree with. If you disagree, that is perfectly fine. However, I believe that you should give me some time to let me change your mind on that. So first things first, there are basically the two main topics that people discuss when they're talking about this, and that is the contingency plan that Cecil has for Mark that he implemented into his head, which is the sonic sound waves, and there is the conversation of using past villains and rehabilitation so that you could use them for good, so that they can make up for their stuff. My AirPod is talking to me about Snapchat. Bro, I don't care. I forgot I had Snapchat. First thing I want to get out of the way is that contingency plan, because I did talk about that on my TikTok. If you didn't see it, don't watch it because I'm going to talk about it now. Referring to the contingency, it's kind of like in two sections that I'm going to talk about. The general contingency itself, and then the way Cecil went about the contingency, which that part is technically two parts in its own. I split everything in apart. Regarding the contingency itself, if you think that there's a problem with the contingency, that's when I kind of have to look at you weirdly, because it's not really a question that Invincible is one of, if not the strongest superhero that they have on Earth. So keeping him relatively in check isn't a bad thing, especially after everything that happened with Omni-Man. Now, one thing that somebody made an argument with on my TikTok is that they were saying, yeah, but season 2, Mark did everything he could to prove that he wasn't his dad, to prove that he was a good guy and he wants to save people. You know who else saved a lot of people? Omni-Man. I'm not saying they're the same, But the thing that I'm saying is that just because somebody does good does not mean they do not have the power to do evil. And one example that I gave was with Superman. How Superman does all this good stuff, he saves people all the time, and he is an amazing person. However, just in case something goes wrong, whether he consciously or unconsciously goes off the deep end, Batman will be ready to take care of him if need be. And this is a scenario that people talk about all the time, and in recent days it's been something that we see over and over, whether in comics, games, movies, whatever. We see it all the time. So if you think what Cecil's doing is wrong, then technically you think what Batman's doing is wrong. And Batman, he's never wrong because he's Batman. I couldn't resist. Batman's great. Spider-Man's better. So that's my overall opinion on on him having the contingency itself. I don't see a problem with it. Now, regarding how he goes about the contingency is a bit of a different story. Implementing the sound device within Mark's head is an iffy one for me because of the kind of person that Mark is. I think Mark, throughout a bit of season 2 and season 3, has shown that he probably wouldn't have allowed them to do such a thing, but I could see why they believe that it is sort of necessary. I understand both sides of this, because for me, I probably wouldn't want that, because it's like, you do that, but if somebody gets it, and we see the same thing with Batman, where he had these contingency plans, but then a villain got a hold of that, and they use it against the heroes. So that could be a problem. But in that same right, it's like, well, if you start killing people, it might be harder to implement it. But regarding this topic, I do lean more on Mark's side, where I don't think injecting that into his head or implanting in his head was a very good idea. Because that's something where, again, if we look at Superman, he knows, or at least he became aware later on, about Batman's contingency, and he accepted it knowing the type of power that he has. Now, again, I don't know if Mark would be so willing to let them have such a thing. However, I do think that implanting it in his head was kind of not the best move. There are better ways that you can store those contingencies, but not make it so invasive, I guess you could say. Now, the third thing regarding this whole contingency plan is the way that he utilizes the contingency. I do want to let you guys know that that's something I'm going to talk about, but that's kind of a little bit for later. But I will say, regarding his use of the contingency, just a quick little snippet as a little teaser for what I'm talking about later, is that I do believe that he shouldn't have used it in the scenario that he was facing, simply because it escalated the situation a bit when it shouldn't have. But that really wraps up my conversation regarding the contingency plans. My opinions when it comes to Cecil using the villains as allies or rehabilitating the villains. Listen, Batman and Flash try to do the same things. So let me get that out of the way. They try to do the same things. So I agree with the notion of rehabilitating villains and potentially letting them, help out. But one thing that I would like to know regarding this is the type of treatment allowed for these villains. A character like Darkwing, I understand after some time, letting him join the Guardians of the Globe. That's okay. I'm okay with that. However, when it comes to Sinclair, who actively killed people who didn't do jack shit, I'm pretty sure with Darkwing, at the very least, he was killing bad people, I think. But regarding Sinclair, it's okay if you want to have him do some work. That's fine, I think. But he needs punishment. There needs to be some type of reprimandation, however you say that. I'm kind of stupid. You can't just give him a lab and let him do whatever. You want to let him work in a lab, sure, but give him horrible hours, let him sleep in a prison, he only gets prison food, And then after some time, couple years in the future, many years, decade or more, after some time, then you can slowly let him start doing other things. But that's my main concern when it comes to him using these villains. What type of treatment are they going to receive? But I also need to know what type of rehabilitation are we doing? Because if we're lobotomizing these villains, that's kind of a no-no. They need to want to do this on their own. But with a character like Sinclair, regardless, I believe he needs some punishment for the stuff he did, because his stuff was a lot worse than Darkwing. Unless I'm uneducated, please, if I'm fucking up, let me know something about Darkwing. And with Mark, I feel like Mark is a little too head-on, villains and bad people must go to jail for the rest of their lives. I don't really believe that's his notion, and I feel like if Cecil informed him about the rehabilitation, that he'd be a bit more open to it, especially, but it very much depends on what type of stuff they did. So this is a situation where I kind of agree with both of them. I'm leaning more towards Cecil, but I fully believe that if Cecil talked to Mark about it, that Mark would be more open to it. And that's the biggest thing regarding this whole conversation that I think people are misunderstanding, is that every issue that Mark and Cecil have could have been solved with a simple conversation, but because of Cecil's hesitance to trust, he kind of misses out on these scenarios to form genuine connections with the heroes, which I don't fully blame him for due to the stuff that he's experienced in the past, but sometimes you have to be willing to be open and share some knowledge for this type of stuff. So I think it's sort of Cecil's fault that Mark acted the way he did, but Mark should also be held accountable for his actions within the episode as well, which I'm going to get into right now. But before I do get into that, I just want to say, again, it's not just black and white. I don't think that Mark is wrong for feeling the feelings that he's feeling. Bars. He should feel this way. I would feel this way. I would be pissed, but regardless, I feel like he should be more understanding, but in that same note, he was caught off guard by this. He wasn't given really much time to understand what Cecil was doing, and Cecil didn't provide him with the opportunity to understand what he was doing. So although I do believe that Mark kind of was a bit too head on, you can't blame him for his reaction because of the way he found out, and he just doesn't fully understand. And we as the viewer don't understand either. That's the thing too, is that I could be saying all this, but the next thing I find out, he has Sinclair in a 5-star hotel, 10-star hotel. I would be pissed off too, even as a viewer. So there's some things we don't know. I understand why Mark acted the way he did, but there is a little amount of hypocrisy with Mark's argument being that villains should like go in jail, rehab, bug rehab, you know what I'm talking about? Because your brother killed, your father killed, and you killed, but you're willing to forgive the people within your circle, but when it comes to other people, all of a sudden you can't forgive. And this really shines with people like Sinclair and Omni-Man, because they're kind of similar in the sense that they went on killing sprees. Sort of. Sinclair was a little less spree than Omni-Man. Omni-Man killed men, women, children, infants. This dude did not discriminate with his killing spree, yet you're willing to forgive him because he is your father and he showed signs of change. And this is when I remember how I mentioned before how like someone like Sinclair should go to prison. That's how I feel towards Omni-Man, but it's kind of hard to do something like that, especially because you're gonna need his help when the Viltrumites show up, and that puts him in a similar box as Sinclair, because Sinclair can make bots that can sort of, kind of, with large enough numbers, can put up a fight with Viltrumites to an extent, to at least slow them down. We saw it with Omni-Man, we saw it with Mark. So in that sense, it's like we need Sinclair to keep working so we can fight off these Viltrumites, but how do we get him to keep working if we have him in shitty conditions? So that's why I keep saying it's not simply black and white. It's really weird, so that's what I think regarding all of that. But at the end of the day, I think Cecil has good intentions, because his whole mindset is protecting America and saving as many lives as he possibly can, making sure that when it comes to the survivors and the lives saved and lives lost, he wants to make sure that ratio is always positive, that more lives were saved than those lost. So I think he has good intentions, but hey. And Mark was kind of getting a bit aggressive, but again, I need to specify that I think it's perfectly reasonable that he got aggressive. And if you think that he was childish for being aggressive, then I just don't think you really understand Mark's character or what he was going through in that moment. So, hey, those are all my opinions regarding everything about the scenario between Mark and Cecil. Go watch Teddy Slump's video. I'm about to go watch it because I wanted to give my opinion before I watch it, because I don't want my opinion to get any type of really swayed depending on what he says. I don't think it would have. He probably thinks the same, I think. So go watch that video. He probably makes some great points. It'll definitely be more entertaining than this video because he's much better at everything. I'm glazing, relax. So yeah, but with that being said, Thank you for watching this video. If there's any more topics that you want me to talk about, because I really do enjoy this form of just talking to the camera. I love it. It makes me feel like I'm vlogging, but I'm actually talking about something that I at least know a little bit about. So thank you for watching this video. Let me know what you want me to talk about next, and I will see you in the next video about anything. Peace out. Stay lazy. Let's go.